There are a variety of approaches to home education, and in this session, we will look at unschooling. Joining me in the lounge is Adèle Breedt. Connie and Adèle successfully unschooled their 3 sons through to university. Duart has graduated with a bachelor's degree in information science and is currently working for Entelect as a software engineer while pursuing an honors degree in computer science. Eduan has a bachelor's degree in physiotherapy and is currently completing his community year, while also acting as a research assistant at the university. Ivan graduated as a mechanical engineer and is busy with his combined honors and master's degree. And the de Breedts are considered one of the pioneering homeschooling families in the Eastern Cape. So it's really an honor to be able to speak to Adèle as what the unschooling philosophy to home education is.
Unschooling is a rather controversial term, and there are a variety of forms of unschooling. So I'm going to be discussing the way we implemented it and how we experienced it. We didn't start out unschooling. I must say that we when I started homeschooling, I used a unit study curriculum just to find my feet. We did do a bit of maths every other day, and I did teach the children phonics, and we did learn how to read. But I soon learned that unschooling was actually a very natural way to learn, and it took away all the fights and the coercion, and so we gradually moved into a more child-centered or child-directed way of learning, which to me is a better term for unschooling. So child-directed, self-directed, or autonomous learning is the terms I prefer to use. And over time, it totally went into full unschooling. But by the time my children were 10 or 11, we did absolutely no actual schoolwork as such, or what other people would call schoolwork. So to me, the definition for unschooling is when a child is not coerced into anything schoolish to please anyone, whether it be the curriculum provider or the parent or the Department of Education, and that all learning is a byproduct of the self-directed activities of the child. So unschooling, in my experience, is respecting and trusting the child, and by implication, the creator of the child. It's believing that the child has everything within himself that he needs to become the person that he was designed to become. A lovely metaphor that I enjoy to use to explain this is when you consider the acorn that becomes the oak. The acorn has everything deposited within himself. To become the oak, it doesn't need anything more to be added, and it doesn't need any force to become the oak. It simply needs some good soil and maybe a little protection to prevent it being trampled upon or eaten by an animal. Then there's also another lovely analogy for unschooling, and it's a quote from W.B. Yeats, and he apparently said that education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. And conventional schooling I would equate to filling of pails, whereas unschooling lights fires.
So to what extent is the parent involved in the child's learning?
Parents are very involved, and I know this is quite, I think people that don't understand unschooling believe that parents can sit back and do nothing because now the child is doing everything. The parents actually act as facilitators. Their job is to add fuel and to stoke that fire that W.B. Yeats spoke about. So to do that, you have to be really in tune with your child. You have to know what he's interested in and what he's, where he is developmentally to be able to do that. So unschooling hinges on relationship and respect. It's a partnership. A lot of learning happens conversationally as you just live life together. The parents have to learn to be attentive. They have to pick up on sensitive periods, not just always about sensitive periods, and on periods of consolidation. And when they do, they need to enable the child and others create opportunities and environment to happen. And this often happens actually by thoughtfully answering questions and just, living life, discussing things. But it can also happen by putting a lesson. I know that some unschoolers will disagree with me, but you can present lessons if the child is eager and enthusiastic and ready. And that's when they're obviously in a sensitive period for something. It could be like when a little person says to you, "Mommy, what does this word say?" Or "How do I write my name?" You can use that and you can present lessons. It's just that it's on the child's request and not your agenda that you're pushing. As teens, it could be them actively seeking out a mentor or a tutor to stretch them further or to present lessons in an area of their interest. And this sometimes is the parent, but many times it's also not. Unschooling parents have to furthermore intimately know the child and show interest in the child's activities to support him. And I know a lot of us feel very, I think our teens are often on computers at this age, and day and age. And what I used to do is I used to go sit with my boys and I'd say to them, that looks interesting, can I watch? And I'd sit and watch, and then I'd ask them questions, and I'd ask them to teach me. And that's how you show interest in whatever activity the child's busy with. And once they realize that you really are interested, they will trust you to be their sounding boards and you to be their greatest cheerleaders. Your job as a parent of an unschooling teen is not to police them, and it's not to be their slave driver, but to trust them. The parents have to, however, realize that the child was primarily created and designed to learn through play and imitation. Dr. Montessori actually said that play is the work of the child. And a child whose need to play has been fulfilled becomes a teen with a purpose, an intrinsically motivated teen. I know there are so many parents out there that homeschool and that are going, I don't know how to motivate my teen. And the best way you can do this is by allowing them a period of play. Ace Neal, the founder of Summerhill, which is Democratic Day, made an observation, and I sat up right when I read this. He said that he found that his 10 to 13, 14-year-olds were generally the children that played the hardest. It was as if they instinctively knew that this period, this season of play was coming to an end. And that once it was all over, they naturally and all by themselves settled down and started planning their futures and how to get there. But he also saw that children that they only accepted into the school at the age of around about 15, and who did not have an opportunity to fill their need to play as youngsters, did not naturally settle down and start working towards their future. They still had this desire to play and not to become serious. So one of the biggest gifts a parent, especially an unschooling parent, should give a child is the full permission for guilt-free play and discovery. This play should not be coordinated by adults in any way. It should be total free play, and the child needs to be free to explore and follow his whims. Often children, especially homeschoolers, feel for the socialization's sake that the children should be doing lots of extramural activities, etc. Your biggest gift you can give your child is that free time to play, and not to expect it to look educational. And finally, the last thing that I think parents need to do if they want to unschool is to model the character traits they want to see developed in their children, whether it be a love for learning or reading, or how to take risks and persevere, or even how to converse effectively. My husband used to do this when we were traveling with our boys. These are all things that your children pick up through assimilation, by watching you, by copying you. The bottom line is unschooling is not unparenting, and it is also not neglect. It requires a very involved parent that is prepared to trust the child.
Sure, that is quite a tall order. I love everything you're saying, but I still have this question, okay, but how do I do it? How do I tickle the interest and fuel the fire? Do I need loads of books in my house? Do I need to take them on outings every second day? Please help me.
Okay, loads of books are wonderful because they're then available for research and especially for read aloud, which is a huge tool. It's something that we continue to do as unschoolers. I still read to my boys because it was a time of relationship building, and I actually later learned that it taught them so much. It became their inner scribe when they started writing essays when they were doing Cambridge. So yes, they're great. The internet is also great because it obviously gives them a lot of resources, and YouTube tutorials we found to be very valuable as well for our sons. So not just books, internet connection is awesome, and free access to it, obviously with parental guides that you need to put on if necessary, just to protect them. And then just going to your next suggestion, which was field trips. That's also very good because it's being out there in the real world. But it's only if the field trip is adding fuel to the fire that we were talking about earlier, not because it's something that you are thinking up. There has to be the buy-in from the child. So the idea is to give lots of opportunity for real-life interaction with the things that they are interested in, because this interaction creates hooks for future theoretical learning. Lots of unschoolers practice something that we call, or they call, strewing, which is where things are purposefully pulled out and left lying around, hoping that the child might stumble upon them and be interested and use them. We didn't really do that. We did it far more relationally. We talked. Our children were not afraid to ask for things, and we were not afraid to suggest things. And we would often say to them, how can we help you? And so we basically partnered in how to get these things or to make these things happen. And they were also not handed to our children on a silver platter. So one has to allow the children, when you are unschooling, to make choices that impact them. They have to feel in control of both their lives and their learning, especially if they're teens. But they also need to learn to deal with the real life consequences of their choices. And then another important thing that you have to do if you want to unschool is to allow for failure, to create a safe space for failure, and to use it as an opportunity to learn. Not to play the guilt card should something not work out as hoped for. Playing the guilt card destroys relationship. Failure is the only way that children learn what they are good at and how they eventually find their passion. Motorbikes or instruments that they bought and have now decided is not for them, they can always be sold and funds used for the next interest or project.
How do you measure your child's progress?
Okay, now that's a tricky one for an unschooler, because you're not working according to a curriculum, you're not working according to set goals. Your child is calling the shots, basically, and you have to be on the edge of your seat all the time. You basically, that's maybe one of the hardest things about unschooling, is not being in control. You're not, So evaluation, you could have them evaluated by an educational psychologist if you really needed to do it. The psychologist would give them a standardized test, and it would determine the grade level of your child's language and math abilities. But this should only be done every 3 years at most. Or if you do it more often, then the results are not reliable. But you need to ask yourself why you feel the need to measure your child's progress. What do you want to achieve by doing this? Often, it takes away all freedom and it creates fear. As parents, as soon as we're operating in fear, then we feel the need to control, as that alleviates our fear. And it can also send a message to your child that he is a failure and that he's been doing this homeschooling thing all wrong because he's not measuring up. As encouragement, Finland, one of the world's top achieving countries, does no testing until the age of 15 years. Instead, all evaluations until then are done through continual assessment. In other words, the teacher has one-on-one interaction with a child, similar to what a homeschooling parent has, and observes and makes notes. So as an unschooler, you need to see the learning in everyday life. You need to be observant and see the value in all activities and situations, and then look for the progress. Sometimes documenting your lives through photographs and a journal or a blog helps you to see that progress without needing to resort to an educational psychologist. And then you need to operate in faith and not fear, trusting that your child is learning and developing in accordance with his own personalized developmental timeline. You should not try to compare your child with the average child, because that's what the psychologist does. Because that child, the average child, is the figment of someone's imagination. It doesn't really exist.
Adèle, your sons all went to university, and you spoke about Cambridge earlier. How do I prepare my child for a school leaving certificate and further studies when I decide to unschool?
You generally find that they start becoming they start wondering about their futures. They start thinking about the big questions of why am I here? What's my purpose? Where am I going? If they've had that opportunity to play and fulfill that need. And like all other homeschoolers, an unschooler chooses his school leaving certificate based on what he'd like to do after school. So if he has no intention of going to university and getting a degree, then the GED, which is available to all homeschoolers, is sufficient. Alternatively, you also find that many unschoolers actually feel that they have no need for a school leaving certificate. Many of them are already entrepreneurs at a young age and are well established in business by the time they turn 18. And then for those that are wanting to pursue degree studies, as we did, I feel Cambridge International Assessment Examinations lays a very good, strong foundation. And one may write any of these school leaving certificates, the GED or Cambridge, without any proof of prior learning. Nothing has to be given. The only thing is that with the GED, you can only do it once you're 17, whereas with Cambridge, you can write it at any age. There's no age restriction. Our sons wrote their first Cambridge exams at the age of 16. We were not in a hurry to finish school. My main aim was to really follow them and to create strong self-images and self-belief in their own abilities. My one child is slightly dyslexic. He was delayed. I held him back. Today he's the mechanical engineer. I actually never thought he'd be able to follow an academic career. At one point, I was just really questioning the Lord as to how on earth and why on earth he gave me this child. I felt so inadequate to prepare him. And this really allowed me to trust the child, to trust the Lord to guide us. And so, yeah, they wrote their first exams at the age of 16. They started preparing for them around about at the age of 15, and they passed them with flying colors, even though they had to fill some gaps, as they had done no maths from a textbook for about 2 to 3 years prior to starting their Cambridge prep. They'd also never done any theoretical chemistry or physics from a text, but they had been introduced to many concepts through play and real-life experiences. And what unschooling gave them to prepare them for Cambridge and for university studies was a love for learning. They are children that are still pursuing their interests in their studies. It gave them the time to find their passions and their interests. They were not burnt out because they had not been writing frivolous exams since a young age. They actually looked forward to the challenge of writing exams. And they had a goal in mind, and therefore they were very intrinsically motivated. So that's how you get to varsity.
Adèle, thank you very much. You've given us, me especially, quite a lot of food for thought. Yeah, thank you for sharing or telling us about unschooling. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.